Welcome, everybody, to another episode. Today, we have a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about social video marketing. And we have a very interesting guest with us, Justin Vajko, who is the founder of Dialog Video Marketing. And he is here to talk to us about all things video.
Thanks for having me, Arjun.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Justin, I'm gonna jump in and ask you first up about your company. Dialog Video Marketing. What got you to start this company, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for 6 years, and I've been doing this company, this form of my company, this line of business with social video marketing for about a year and a half. What got me into it was fall of 2022. I had a client come to me who said, "Hey, we have a client." This was an agency, and they came to me and said, "Hey, we have a client out in LA. He's a big time broker. He wants to do video. Can you do video?" And I thought, well, yeah, we can. It's going to be expensive, right? To fly out there, do the shoot and the travel. And I had just come across this software called Riverside. It's a podcasting software, and a lot of people have been using it for podcasting. But it got me inspired to say, well, and it turns out they couldn't afford, right, all the services. Long story short. But I said, you know what we can do? We can do these remote video interviews with you and try it out. Just try it and interview him there. And cost was extremely affordable compared to the on-site shoot. And we did it. And it was interesting because this broker, he was in his 70s, 80s. He wasn't very good on camera, right? He didn't have the best screen presence. He kept forgetting to look at the camera, very stuttered in his language, but it still knew his stuff. Very, very smart. And when the agency put his videos on his Instagram feed, he was getting maybe 100 views per average before this on hey, this property is for sale. When they started posting his videos on his feed, he was getting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 views. And the quality of the video wasn't even that great. It was just him talking about the same things that were already on his feed. It was just him talking about it. It got me realizing, wait a second, people want to hear him talk about this. They know him. They buy a house from his agency, but really it's his name on the agency. There's a lot of power in an individual sharing the information versus just the information being shared in a post. And it got me thinking, I wonder if there are other people out there like this who are really smart, know their stuff. They don't have the time or the budget to go do video marketing. And that was where Dialog Video Marketing was born.
I love it. I think that's a great story of how you started. I'm kind of curious, is obviously an individual who is doing this? I mean, this example that you gave is of an individual who's doing this for sort of building their personal brand, and underlying it is a business that they're trying to obviously promote as well.
Yeah.
So what do you see in this world? Who are the people who are doing this? Is this largely, I mean, I think that the world between these creators and entrepreneurs is kind of blurring right now. And so what do you see right now? Is it more creators creating to build their brand, or is this more entrepreneurs and businesses doing this to create a personal brand, and in some ways extend that brand towards their businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, I see 3 different types of people doing video. There's the traditional content creators, the people we might follow on YouTube or TikTok. They make funny stuff, they make educational stuff, but you don't really buy from them. It's just they maybe get sponsorships. They monetize either through views or sponsorships from big brands that know that they have a big audience, right? That's the typical one we usually think of. Then there's the personal brand folks, and the personal brand folks are folks that know it's important to do it, but they're not really selling anything. They just want to get a good job, and they know that putting themselves out there is helpful for that. They might be senior vice presidents, they might be the run-of-the-mill employees, they might be anyone like that in between. But it's not, there's real money attached to that. It's really, I know I should do this and I'm just going to do it. And they don't really have a plan for that. It's just personal branding. And then the third audience, and this is our clients, and this is me, is folks that have fantastic knowledge, but not a lot of people know about them yet, or maybe they do, but they've never really done it in video. And so they use video as a way to share their knowledge and become a platform for their thought leadership and attract leads, attract speaking opportunities, and things like that.
Got it. So I love that 3 buckets that you said. Creators doing it as a way for eventually monetizing it, the second bucket of people who are building their personal brand for maybe career mobility, but like more or less building their personal brand. And then there are people who are generating leads through this. I love that. Like, I think
Yeah.
those are like sort of good buckets over here. And sort of like digging a little bit more deeper into this concept that you just said, like around like social selling and like personal brand
Yeah.
building as well, right? Like, so what's kind of the trend that's happening right now in that, like, why is now a time that this is taking off, or like, why didn't this happen earlier? What are
Yeah.
some of the things that have happened in the recent past that's made this now a trend?
Yeah. So video is a trend. It's been a trend. I think TikTok really got a lot of people thinking about video more. And that was in 2016 they started. In 2020, we had the pandemic. At the same time, Instagram and YouTube both launched their short form feeds. And everything we're talking about today, I'm talking about today, Arjun, is about short form video, not long,
Right.
10, 20-minute videos. Short form video, showing up, giving some value, you're done. And so that started with TikTok, and then it moved into, Instagram did their feed, they call them Reels, and then what was the other one?
YouTube
Anyway,
Shorts.
yes, and so YouTube Shorts, and so all these platforms have slowly started emerging, and people seeing the value of showing up on video and doing these educational pieces of content. And LinkedIn has always had a video portion of the feed. You can post a carousel, you can post a text box, you can also do video, but they haven't always rewarded video with the most reach compared to other types of content. And that's my primary platform, is LinkedIn. That being said, LinkedIn is also beta testing currently a video feed like Reels style. And Facebook is coming out with a Reels style feed as well. So all these platforms are going to a video first model because they recognize that people just want to learn from other people. And to answer your question in a different way, especially in the B2B space, I think one of the reasons, this is my belief, I think one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of people move into video is because AI is taking over so much of the content creation process that it's going to become harder and harder for people to build trust in what you're saying is
Mm,
actually, is this from a robot or is this from
right.
you? And video is one way to show up as you, so that people, when they're working with you, they get a taste of what it's like to work with you. And I think people are becoming more comfortable with the idea. Although a lot of the people we talk to still aren't comfortable with the idea. That's why they hire us. A lot of them do, right?
Right.
They get more comfortable on camera and we help them with that. But it's becoming a trend because of the platforms and because the audiences are consuming more content. But I think there's also a driving factor with AI pushing people into video because they're realizing that's where more human connection can happen. Because no longer, you can whip out a post on LinkedIn, for example, in 2 seconds using ChatGPT. It's not going to be the greatest. And if you
Right.
just leave it at that, you need to do some work on it. But I think a lot of people are starting to realize, hey, if I don't do video, I'm going to start blending in with all of the other content out there that some of it's good, most of it's crappy, and a lot of it's AI generated.
I like it. I think the key points that you mentioned, if I could paraphrase, is like being like the consumption style of people has changed significantly, that they're consuming short form video content and it's become like this snackable candy that like people are loving. And then the other part is like this authenticity and like the part where like you come in, put your face over there, and like so people have a personal connection to you, and that's becoming the new phase of like social selling as well.
Right.
And in some ways, like this personal brand building, like we talked about like sort of these three sets
Yeah.
of people over there. I'm curious about like the middle segment that you mentioned, which is like people who are doing this for career mobility, like it's like or maybe in general they are like a senior, they've gotten something. Some of them's motive is that like, or they want to give back, they want to share their
Yeah.
knowledge. Some of them have the motive of like being able to like build an audience and community so that like their career mobility becomes easy. Like there are like multiple reasons why they are doing this. I'm curious, like what kind of people are like feeling comfortable doing this versus who's not. Like, I mean, I'm kind of curious. Like you briefly
Yeah.
mentioned this as to like people still don't feel comfortable coming to camera. People are still like feeling like it's like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. So just tell me more about like what is the mindset of people that are doing this.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the one I know the least, but I'll tell you from
Okay.
my perspective. It's people that had a successful career and they do feel like giving back and they're comfortable. I find there's a lot of senior executives who have had to give speeches. They've had to be on video, and being on video is not a challenge for them. So they'll easily jump into it. So I have seen that a lot. You know, for example, the individual, I think his name is Chris Williams, former senior VP at Microsoft of HR. I believe he went down this route, and he'd been doing, you know, and so now he shares on TikTok a lot, and he's gotten speaking opportunities from it, but I don't know if that was his goal. You know, the whole point was he wanted to put himself out there after a successful career. He's always the epitome of this idea of using personal branding for gain, not necessarily knowing what it's going to buy you in the end. I think that's a big part of it is executives and coaches who have been there, done that, and they're willing to share their knowledge. And these platforms reward that when the videos are done in a succinct way, in a value-driven way.
Right. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So jumping into like the exact content itself, right? Like, so obviously when you are like working with like, say, a business, an entrepreneur, or someone who is actually doing this as a way to like do social selling, they need to find out like what kind of content they should be like planning this for. When I say content, like what should they talk on video? What should it be? The style, the format. Walk me through like how you would like encourage someone to think about this.
That's a great question. There's two ways I see people doing this, planning for content. Well, actually three.
Okay.
We'll start with the easiest one, which is the first one is just write whatever comes to mind that day. Go fly by the seat of your pants. That is a viable strategy for some people. There are content creators. There are people that run businesses that I talk to, that I read their posts. They say, I don't have a content calendar. I write whatever comes to me every day. And that's fine if that works for them. But that's the minority of people. The second type is, people that plan ahead, and you've got, you know, your content pillars and your 5, you know, they say 3 to 5 content pillars. This is the 5 themes I want to talk about. So for example, if I did this for myself, I'd say, I want to talk about trust. I want to talk about how easy video is, debunking myths about video. I want to talk about tools, you know, that people in my industry use and I use to make life easier for myself and running my business, or specifically when it comes to video. And there's themes, right? You can call them themes or content pillars, as we call them in the marketing world. And you can do that planning at a time and then create your content with those themes every month, right? Okay, now this week is going to be this theme. You can do it by week. You can do it by whatever. And then the third way is kind of an in-between approach. And this approach we take with our clients. If they have themes already, we take those in the strategy call we do with them. We say, okay, we're going to use these themes, these topics you feel comfortable talking about, and we're going to talk about these. And then we also look at the results of those themes, because just because you make a plan doesn't mean that plan is going to work. So what we do is we measure the results of, hey, how are these themes working for you? And every month we go back to our clients and we say, hey, these videos are working well. These videos are not working as well. Let's talk more about this and less about this, and just see where that takes us. So it's kind of it's an iterative approach on the second version, which is we're not just going to keep going with this. We're going to actually talk about those themes, but maybe there's some themes we haven't talked about that we should be talking about that'll take off if we write a video about that. Or do
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. So was that the 3 things? Like I thought you mentioned another.
Yeah. So there's
one.
fly by the seat of your pants. Have content themes that you figure out ahead of time, and you just talk about that. And then there's the in between approach, which is you do a little bit of both, where it's mostly you work on those themes, but every so often, let's go off topic just a little bit. Let's see if there's anything else out there that resonates with the audience beyond just the 5, you know, themes we've decided.
Got it. And in general, right, like, so this is very tactical things that I'm talking about, but like, there are some days where you feel like you're so like awesome. I can just come in front of camera and I feel like I'm talking and like everything. And some days I'm like, you know what, like not today. It's just not going to happen, right? Like, so I'm curious, this is a very tactical thing. Like, how do you put people in that right mindset when they come in and have a conversation? Like, is this something that you have them drink something before the thing, kind of
a nice shot of whiskey helps every time, Arjun. It's just this part of the process. No, just kidding. So so for us, that's a really good one. It's a really good challenge, is what I mean. It's a good question. It's a good challenge. We have clients that are ready to go every time. We have clients that really struggle. Some clients, in fact, we're dealing with this right now. We have one client. They're fantastic. Every time they show up, we get feedback later that it's stressful for them to do that. And they're going from client calls, blah, blah, blah. And then they've got our 1 hour every month. And it's like, oh, I feel overwhelmed. You wouldn't know by talking to them. but that's how they feel. So for them, we're adapting it. We're giving them a 2-hour block instead of 1 hour every other month. So that, and then we're telling them, you know, clear calendar an hour ahead of time, so you have time to think about this. And that's just for them and their mental health. But the quality of videos, even if they didn't do that, would still be really good. So everyone is different. And so the strategies, tactics that we use are different. One thing I have found that's helpful, especially for one of our clients, is that if we schedule things in the morning, your head, you know, we all have this thing called executive function. I have ADHD. One of our clients is actually an ADHD coach. He's the one that taught me about this. And he's the one we use this tactic with, which is that means we all have a certain executive function, is this ability to make big critical decisions, or even little ones, any decision. And so your brain runs out of that resource the longer you go. And especially if you have ADHD like I do, it runs out faster throughout the day. So for him and for me and for others that, you know, we know are going to struggle with executive function and making decisions and being present and having energy at the end of the day, move that to the beginning of the day. And I've heard this works for other creative tasks as well. If you want to be more creative or productive, put that stuff uninterrupted at the beginning of your day. And the same concept applies here. And that we're finding a lot of success with that. Night and day difference, in fact, when we move from 4 p.m., you know, sessions to 10, 11 a.m. sessions, completely different ball game in terms of showing up and being ready.
I like it. I think these are really good, very easy to apply tips, but you just need to know this, right? Like, so, and tell me a little bit more about the tone of the content as well, right? Like, there are people who are more like, I want to make this humorous, but does this make sense in a business world? And like, you know, is this entertaining enough? Or like, is this going to keep people for more than 10 seconds before they're going to like scroll off and go on to the next video? Like, how do you come up with like what makes for like a good tone, and like just even the content itself needs to be sort of lining up with that tone, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would encourage people to think about this in stages. Stage 1, just get started. And it's actually not 10 seconds before someone scrolls away. It's like 3 to 5. So before anyone freaks out, the key with that is have a really good intro line. Just, you know, something controversial, something maybe, like you said, humorous. But if you're not comfortable with humor yet, at least give value. The baseline for good content online is not humor. Many of us think, oh, it's got to be this way. No. It's value, and value is something that's helping your, you know, people that are a few steps behind you move forward. So make sure that value is there. And then I would encourage you, you know, stage 2, if this is part of your personality, your personal brand, or your company brand, and it is for me, then try to think, how can I add humor in there? One way that I add humor into my sketches is I will just, you know, I'll think of things as I'm going, because I deliver my videos, my content. When I record my content, I record it with an outline and I try to build jokes in there, but sometimes things come to me and I just do the joke and my editor says, yeah, that was a good one. He'll keep it. And sometimes he won't. But another way that I do it is actually tack on at the beginning of the video. I actually create a mini sketch about that topic. If you look at, there's a video posted yesterday at the time of this recording where I did that. I talk about the marketing emergency room, and I thought that makes for a really good sketch. What if we had somebody come into an emergency room? I need help. And the doctor says, we can't help you. Why? We're a figment of your imagination. And then it, you know, it shifts. So because there's no such thing as a marketing emergency room. And then I talk about that. So it moves from a sketch to a talking head video. That's one way I'm building humor into my videos. So making it, you know, entertaining and also educational, but that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You might throw a couple jokes in there, or it might just be the way that your videos are edited that you make it more engaging. And that's why hiring a good editor is important too, because they can, you know, they can take something very dry or normal talk conversation and make it more engaging with the types of B-roll, the types of sound effects, the types of music they use.
I like that a lot. I feel like it's come to like so many things that go on to making it like the first 3 to 5 seconds of hook, and like keeping it engaging. Like, you know, people are so used to seeing shifting screens that like something has to change every 3 to 5 seconds. I love it. I love what you're talking about over there. And then jumping into like the idea of like distributing, and I think you mentioned this as well, as to like walk me through, like, you know, how do you even like say this is the channels that I'll pick? You mentioned you like use LinkedIn the most, and so how should somebody be thinking about the channels that they should distribute it in?
Yeah, it's very simple. If you are in a B2B setting, you need to be on LinkedIn, and everything else is like 5th place. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying it's to B2B. Like, LinkedIn needs to be the primary one by far. If you're in any other space, don't be on LinkedIn. be on either YouTube or TikTok. And in fact, I'd probably recommend TikTok these days because of the amount of generous reach that you get with the platform. Everyone's on TikTok, believe it or not. Even older folks. If you look at the cross section of everyone that's on there, it's very even across all the ages. Everyone thinks it's the young folks, but it's more and more older folks are joining the platform, just like we saw with Facebook years ago, right? It was started out with young folks, and then more and more older folks joined, and now it's full of grandmas and grandpas looking at pictures from their grandkids or kids or whatever. TikTok's no different. People are starting to join that are older, so there are folks there for every audience, even B2B. They might be more spread out, but they are on there. But it's really that simple. When we talk with our clients, it's like, if you're B2B, LinkedIn. If you're anything else, which we don't deal with, but it would be the other platforms. All of our clients are B2B, so it's pretty simple for us. Just go B2B, LinkedIn, and then yes, you have LinkedIn, you have a YouTube, you have a TikTok. Sure, we'll do that as well, but let's put 80% of our efforts into LinkedIn.
I like that. And it comes to since every channel has its own sort of metrics of how you measure performance. When it comes to LinkedIn or so, there's the standard impression counts, number of people reacting to it. In the early days, especially for people who are just getting started, it's a pretty brutal first several stretch, right? So what is your strategy on how to get past that initial curve of where it feels like you're just throwing things into the void with nothing coming back?
Yeah, it has to do with having sustainable. I think a big part of what keeps me going, right, is the question you're asking. What keeps me going until I get where I want to be, which is for us and our clients, lead generation. I think the big part of that is making sure your content creation process is sustainable. It's affordable, right? You can either do it yourself or hire out, and it's not breaking the bank, but it's not taking a ton of your time. So that, yes, you're doing it and you're doing a good job of it, but you're not bending over backwards and you're putting out this amazing content, because there's nothing more soul destroying, soul sucking than putting so much effort into something only for it to bomb. So what I recommend is do something and make sure it's sustainable so that you can go for 6 months rather than 2 months. 2 months of video is not going to get you anything. 6 months, you're probably going to get something. And that's all you need to start doing more. That happened to me. I started doing video in the spring of 2023, about over a year ago. We were already helping clients, and I realized, wait, I need to do this for myself if I'm doing it for my clients, right? And so I started, and I told myself, trust the process. And it took me 3 months. I got 1 lead a month on average. It wasn't nothing. And then at month 3, all of a sudden, we got 6 leads from our content in 1 month, in a 45 day period. 6 leads from a content, and then 6 leads from referrals from people I was networking with, from the content they saw. It was all connected. So 12 total leads after 3 months. So it's just kind of all at once. I thought it was humorous. I was like, no way, it's not. No way it works that way, but that's the way it worked for me. It's not going to work that way for everybody, but the mantra paid off. Then there's been ebbs and flows, but the goal is make it sustainable so that you don't get discouraged and throw in the towel when you're like, oh, it's been 3 months and I haven't seen anything. That's a big part of it, is just making sure it's sustainable. Obviously, there's another question in there, like, is it actually touching on your client's pain points? Are you making content that's valuable? Is it short enough? Is it engaging enough? There's all sorts of buckets we need to look at when we do an audit of somebody's content, why it's not working. But the number one thing in order to endure is make sure your strategy for creating content is sustainable.
I like it. No, I think the part that you mentioned about the type of engagement and everything, and how that needs to sustain for that 6 month period, that's actually really, really hard challenge in itself, right? Just to sustain that energy for it. But
yeah,
I love what you mentioned, that it's make it so that it's a checklist thing, that you just do it. You're not you're not sort of heavily hoping for a return right now, just sort of delay that gratification in some ways.
Yeah,
right?
It's tough. Yeah, and it's a very tough one. It's a mental game, right?
Right.
It's a mental game. The reason why Navy SEALs become Navy SEALs is because they can outlast all other folks. And there's other parts of that too, right? They're more there for each other. There's a whole mentality I won't even go into. But a big part of why people can be successful is because they just outlast the competition. And that's the thing with content. It doesn't mean do the same thing forever, even if it never gets you results.
Right.
But it's the first step. There's other steps. If you hit 6 months and you haven't gotten anything, now we're looking at other things like, okay, like I said, is your content valuable? Are you talking about the right things? But the first thing is making sure it's sustainable. So you're thinking long-term, not short-term.
Yeah, and on that note, like, what are like the metrics that people should be caring about? Like, is it
Yeah.
trending in the right direction in the early stage, and even when you are like sort of already
Yeah.
getting leads to this? Like, what are obviously the ultimate metric is that like, are you getting enough leads through this? But like, what are other metrics that you keep track of?
Yeah, one of my favorites came to mind right away when you asked me this question was when people show up to calls with you and they say, "I feel like I already know you." That's a pretty good metric because
Right.
they're bought into your philosophies. They know they've watched your content, and that happens with video. Maybe it happens with other kinds of content. I don't know, but I love it when it happens with video. And that's a good one to look for. But beyond that, beyond the leads, you've got, first stage metrics. Are you getting engagement? So engagement is likes, shares, comments, and especially comments and especially shares. I find shares on LinkedIn, and we're talking LinkedIn here specifically, but a lot of this applies to other platforms. Shares are the biggest sign that your content is resonating. People love to, if it resonates with someone and they share it, you can get a couple shares on LinkedIn. That's a huge win these days. Getting shares. So repost is what LinkedIn calls it. But that's a massive one that your content's resonating. Comments are also a really good one that your content's resonating. But in general, engagement rates. If you're getting a decent engagement rate, and that depends on every industry and things like that. But if you're getting, like, let's say 10% engagement rate, you're doing a great job on LinkedIn. I don't know about every platform, but you want to look at that. And it's not just about likes, it's about comments. It's about variety of engagement. If you're getting a bazillion likes and no comments, you've got a problem because you might be having people that are like, oh, that was good, and they move on. But comments tells the platform this was quality, so it's going to show it to more people. And then you're also know that if someone spent time to write a comment, it means that it resonated enough with them to stop and share that. It's not a lot of people leave comments. So those are things we look for. We also look for click-through rates, on clicks and visits of landing pages. If you're sending people off site, what's the rate on that organically? Since these aren't ads, it's content. Are you getting, any information, any good clicks from that? But those are the ones I care for initially. It's just engagement. Views you can't control really, but they are dictated by the engagement rate. So higher engagement rate, more longer view of a video. LinkedIn goes, hey, more people watch that video. Doesn't matter how long it was, more people watch that. That means the quality must be good. Let's show it to more people. So you can influence views, but you can't control views. The biggest thing you can influence is your engagement rate. And that really is a direct response of how good your content was, how valuable your content was.
I like that. I think this is I really like that, like the first thing that you mentioned, which is about like the lagging indicator of like people coming and telling you that like, oh, you know what, you've seen familiar, like I almost think that like I know you. I really like that. How when it comes to like that being one of the goals that you're going after, what is kind of the cadence of like posting do you typically like recommend for people? Is it like daily content, weekly content? Is it varying for different type of people? Like what's the typical cadence?
Yeah, so our clients aren't in the high volume game. It's just impossible to get a high volume of content from a 1 hour interview a month. That's our model. It's based around a 1 hour interview because we recognize our clients are busy. The reason they haven't done this before is because they don't have the time. So we don't ever do more than an hour. You can't squeeze more than 12 videos out of a single hour. It's very difficult to do that. You can, it's just very difficult. So our model is really based on time savings for our clients. That being said, so from that, you're getting about 2 to 3 videos posted a week. That's what we do for our clients. If you do more, fantastic. More power to you. But goes back to that sustainability point I made. You can always do more, but is it sustainable? And I don't even post every day with video. I post 2 or 3 videos a week, and the rest is supplemented with written content, carousels, and things like that. And I have a sustainable strategy. It takes me 8 hours every Thursday to create my content for the following week. 6 to 8 hours, something like that. And it's a variety of things. And it's also some courses I'm working on. And so those 30 days are my content creation days. But no entrepreneur wants to spend 6 to 8 hours of their week just working on content. That's why our clients just spend 1 hour a month, and they get, anywhere from 4 to 5, depending on that level, or 12. And then we post it for them. The key is consistency. It's not so much, every day doing it. The more you can, great. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk and Alex Hormozi, they're doing that, but they have teams. They're spending $80,000, $100,000 a year, creating this content.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. I think I could go on and on, but we are almost close at 30 minutes right now. So I want to thank you, Justin, for like being on the show and sharing your thoughts. I think this is definitely like a trend that's like increasing, and so more power to you on like growing in this journey. And I'm thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Arjun. Appreciate it.